Thanks very much.
Chair, I'll ask now that we play the debrief of the use of force that we saw just before we broke, which is disc 50, cam 2, please, of UOF 134.17.
So this is the debrief of Mr. 2155. So we went to C Wing. The teams went in. Mr. Laid on the side of his bed, holding his chest. Healthcare came in, checked him over, checked his obs, said he was fine to continue. Refused to walk, so he became a dead weight. Went to the ground. Refused to stand up and walk compliantly. So handcuffs were used. He became quite resistant. Then, once handcuffs were applied, he was stood up and he was walked down to Eden Wing, where he became fairly compliant straight away. Full search was conducted, nothing was found. Healthcare checked him over again, they were happy with what they've seen. His obs now, he remains constantly watched for the first hour due to force being used, and he's coming on Rule 40 for non-compliance and to facilitate his removal directions. So that's it from me. So we go around the teams one by one, state your name, your rank, any injuries at present.
DCO Alice Ragg, no injuries at present.
DCO Dave Webb, no injuries at present.
DCO Eden, no injuries at present.
DCO Pasquale, no injuries.
DCO Sayers, no injuries.
DCO Daniel Lake, no injuries at present. DCO Bromley, no injuries at present.
DCO Callum Tully, no injuries at present.
We've also got healthcare here. Any concerns with Mr. State your name and your rank.
Staff Nurse Elio Morata, no concerns, no injuries.
Okay, does anyone have anything they want to add? No?
No.
Okay, that concludes the debrief. Thank you very much.
Right, there we are. So is that the sort of thing that typically happened after a use of force?
Yes, sir.
Before I go on to look at a couple of documents, did you have any concerns before that use of force, particularly as you were the shield officer, given the known physical health issues that that man had?
Yes, sir, of course.
What were your concerns?
That he would have a heart attack. It was stressful because, on the one hand, you're being told about someone who's got a conviction for attempted murder and is not going to comply. And so you are anticipating having to use the shield, but then this is someone who's had some serious heart problems. So serious that previous attempts to remove him have failed. So, yeah, very worried.
We saw healthcare there, though, didn't we?
Yes, sir.
And you'll remember when you all go into the room, he's on the bed, and if my memory serves me, one of the officers asks for healthcare to check him out first of all, because he was holding his chest.
Yes, sir. So we never used the shield on him because immediately he appeared to have a sort of problem with his heart and was in some pain, or it certainly appeared to be the case.
But are you saying, from your perspective, you don't think use of force should ever have been used in that situation, or was it? Are all you telling us is that you had a personal concern because of his physical health?
I just had a personal concern, sir. Given that the nurse assessed him and gave it the all clear, then I don't. Who am I to say the nurse is wrong?
Let's look at the use of force DCF2 form, please. CJS 005651. Put that up on screen, please. Familiar to us now. Use of force commenced 21:30, completed 21:47. Log number 134 of 17, we know the date. The individual's name and details are given. A handheld camcorder was used. body-worn camera, no, but that appears to be wrong, doesn't it? Because I think what we had, or what we're told we have, is body-worn camera footage.
No, sir. The footage was being handheld.
Oh, it wasn't body-worn camera?
No, sir. And you can see, although it's very brief, so it's quite easy to miss, that in my secret camera footage, I turn to my left slightly when there's that long sort of 10-minute pause before he's actually restrained.
Yeah.
And you can see Nathan Ring holding the camera.
Yeah. Certainly if you see the CCTV, when he's walked out, you can see Nathan Ring holding a camcorder. Certainly the way this material's come to us, it calls itself BWC, body-worn camera footage, but you're saying this is camcorder footage.
Yes, sir.
Right. And we can see that the reason for force being used on the front sheet is to prevent self-harm, maintain good order and discipline, planned use of force, detainee on ACDT, the location and the relocation are given from C-Wing to Cell 7 on E-Wing. The contacts in the box below, and we have the usual forms that follow, and I don't think we need to go to them, but one thing I am going to ask to do, please, is look at something we've not seen before on page just my pagination is not paginated, I'm going to have to count it. Page 8 I think it is. And we'll see a briefing script. Now this is the briefing, not the debrief that we just saw, so this is a briefing before. I'm S. Dix. It's the 27th of May. The current situation is that detainee D1914 is currently in C11, has escorted RDs 28th of May to Romania. RDs?
Remover directions.
And is refusing to go and refusing to relocate onto Eden Wing. The estimated pickup time is 9, which is during the regime time, hence why the move needs to be done before. Despite extensive negotiations, it's not been possible to resolve the situation peacefully, and we can see that this is, it looks like it's a pro forma type of document where you just fill out the blanks. Is that right?
It appears so, sir, yes. I've not seen one of these before.
You've not seen one of these before. Then you have at the bottom the plan, and then on the next page, please, the brief. Towards the top, the brief. The plan is to go to C11, speak to D1914, disabled room, currently on the right bed. View will be obstructed by the shower curtains, and so on and so forth. Right at the bottom of that page, significant history of previous self-harm, medical issues to do with his heart, previously had a heart attack, double heart bypass in November, also has medical letters to say he's due another operation in August. We've liaised closely with our on-site healthcare and in particular Dr. Hussein, who's stated and written a letter, next page please, at the top confirming D1914 is fit to be detained, fit to fly and fit to have force used on him. So it looks as if there was medical sign-off even before the actual use of force. We will have healthcare present throughout, and also the medical evac chair. This will purely be for D1914 if D1914 becomes compliant and requires medical assistance by way of chair to Eden Wing. So that's a brief. If you look at the next page, it appears as if this is a script which Steve Dix must have read out to everyone, because at the end it says questions. And you being one of the officers, do you remember being at this briefing?
I can remember it not very clearly.
Yeah, but it's the sort of thing perhaps that you were accustomed to?
Yes, sir.
All right. It certainly got your name as one of the officers who was present. Okay, thank you. Let's move on then, please, to something else. And this is an incident which took place on the 14th of June, where D1275 had a spice attack and was attended to by healthcare and then mocked by Nathan Ring. You were asked about this and to give a narrative account about it. You said you didn't know much of the background, but you responded to the medical emergency called to D-Wing after a detained man had taken drugs. You said you didn't know if he'd had a long history of drug use, and you didn't know how much of the drug he was likely to have taken. You didn't know for certain whether or not he'd taken spice, but his behaviour mirrored that of other detainees who took spice. And since the use of spice was so widespread at Brook House, you felt it was a reasonable assumption for staff to make. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
You said medical emergencies being called because a detainee had taken too much spice were a common occurrence at Brook House, so this incident was no surprise. And during the course of it, you said a manager advised you to get an evac chair for 1275, but there wasn't one in the evacuation chair area. And so you went to the healthcare department to see if they could give you one, but there were no healthcare staff present. And so were you able to get the evac chair down to, it was down to the courtyard, I think, wasn't it?
Yes, sir. I couldn't find one.
Right.
Not in healthcare or in the evac chair position.
Eventually, 1275 was taken to a room, during which, as we'll see, DCO Derek Murphy says, "I've no sympathy for him. If he dies, he dies." There was a nurse in attendance. There was a conversation between nurse and you regarding the possibility of a detained man dying through spice use. And there were several mocking type comments by Nathan Ring, who was also present. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, now we've not viewed this footage before, and I'm going to ask the evidence handler, please, to put up Kenkov 1035, and I'm only going to play individual parts of it. So Kenkov 1035, V 2017, 0614 00015. We'll start at the beginning and work our way to 4 minutes, and then I'll ask you to stop and start again at a different place.
What's wrong?
Do you need a hand, Mark? Yeah, nothing really to see here, fellas. Just give it. Let's not crowd him. I know. You're going to have to move to a different bench, lads. It's all right. Just carry on playing, but not here. Just move over there, maybe. Thank you. Follow him dirty. Lads, let's not stare and watch, please.
Can we just check healthcare on route, please? Got one, I can see healthcare is on route now to Delta Wing Court.
Tommy Grilled this one, he's going to be seen, isn't he? He looks like 21 see his face? He's all over my left foot. You're just
how's it going? Just come and visit. I don't know who called it. I was just.
Take more people down to the next one. I saw that one. I spoke to that tonight.
I don't know who called it. Yeah, well, I've come out expecting it to be like they just saw it in control. Come on, fellas.
Dixie, what's happening in your way?
I'm going to need his name.
I told you. In there, dude, all right? Relax, just want to take the men.
Thank you.
Probably. No, don't do that to me.
Just volunteered yourself, didn't you? What's that, it's going to come out for a It's an advert, eh?
Relax your hand, mate.
Relax your hand, we want to take the temps.
Okay, thank you. Who was there, Mr. Tully? Do you recognise anybody?
DCM Steve Lawson was there.
Yeah. Who else?
I think DCM Nick London was also there. A DCO called Mark, whose second name I can't remember, was also there. DCO Aaron Stokes appears to be there as well. And DCM Steve Dix. So, and a nurse.
And a nurse, thank you. Can we go on to 10:20, please? So now he's being taken back to onto a wing, is that right?
Onto E-wing, so yes.
Yep. Yeah. Where was the courtyard? Which wing was that off?
D-wing courtyard.
D-wing. Okay, thank you.
It's all right, man. That's all right. This way, man. What you been doing, man? Smoking a little bit, yeah? It's no good, that, is it, eh? You'll take that. We'll get in the room, yeah?
Oh, let's stay there. I've lost everybody 6 months.
Eh?
I'm not looking. Look at the stay lad. Look. Must have been on your mother. Alright, are you ready to go, young man?
We're going, yeah, is he going in one?
Yeah.
Just
Before you put them in.
Hold on, just wait there.
Oh, you want? One second.
Just wait there, it's all right, we'll get in the room in a minute.
Sorry, I'm checking that one. Let's stand up.
Oscar, one, you can stand down there, medical response.
Stand up. You've got to stand up. You've got to stand up. That's it. That's it. One below. One below. That's all right. Whatever you have is in there.
Normally his sock.
Just tobacco, was it?
Just need to check, get me on the bed down, we'll check his, get his shoes off, check his socks. That's where you normally keep them.
On the bed. Let's go, man. Just down, sit on the bed.
Is there any in there?
Huh?
Just gonna check see the shoe. Begin to report, yeah?
98.
Oh, wait, you're still the nurse to check there. You're okay, do you?
Do you have the oximeter?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I thought I had it there with that.
The oximeter.
Okay, man, just have a rest for a while, okay? Okay? Okay?
Do it.
Sorry, man. Put it on the side.
On the side, facing me. On the side. Recovery, that's it. That's it. Yes, that's it. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, man.
I want the finger. Give me a finger. Give me a finger.
See what Derek did.
No, I just want to check your saturation.
Put them in the proper position.
I'm the nurse, yeah? Give me a finger, don't be silly.
I'm here if you need. I've got staff here if you need. Do you need any assistance? Just relax, relax. They're here to help you. Just relax.
Can you let us check your
We
blood
have to
pressure?
leave him for a half an hour.
Let's just look at your blood pressure.
Right?
Come on, put this on.
They're just here to help you, mate. Just comply with the nurses, and then we can leave. We can leave you alone.
Let us check your blood pressure. I'm not going to hurt you. Give me
It's
a
all right. They're
hand.
nice. They're nice.
Give me a hand. That's it. Just put it through. That's
Do you want the
it.
machine or the finger?
That's it. That's it. All done.
Checked it earlier, it's fine. You
Nice
can see
and
the
still.
pulse if it went down, the pulse went wrong. What's his name? Do you have his name?
We think he's,
No.
okay, he's just getting his paperwork.
Okay.
I don't want to say because it might be wrong.
Alright?
He's on this evening. I don't know. They should film it and then show it back to them afterwards. How
Still don't
stupid
do
they are.
nothing because they'll still do it the next day.
Take it away. Right, left.
Oh yeah, it has.
Oh, here it is.
Really high. I think it was the beginning.
All right.
He likes you.
Does your face taste nice? Because you appear to be chewing it off.
He looks a bit like you when you do that.
Baby's on the coat.
Still package you need, 128.
That's it.
And he's got
Alright, that's fine. I'm happy with that. The 126.
Oh, did you? Yes. Yeah, cool. Sorry, I wasn't. I just think we're down here. That's what happened. All right.
Catch the fuckers who are doing this. Actually, I'll put your line by now. I got 27. This one? To where? I got forward.
Oh, that's nice. I got nice.
Yeah, nice if I had some cash, man. I go there, I don't know what will happen. Maybe
You don't know anyone there?
Huh?
You don't know anyone there?
Man, since 2013, I don't go to my country.
You happy to go?
Where did Nomi go?
Bye, man.
Yeah, thank you. And then let's forward to 2510, please. That's fine, thank you.
He wants to keep it now. I haven't heard this one yet. Maybe it's new singles come out. Yeah. got potential, definitely.
It's a yes for me.
A yes from me as well. How about you?
It's how much
Right. Extract next year, yeah? Come on, let me have
Give it back to her.
Take it. Leave that back. There you go. Really? No, you should go back. There you go. There you go.
What's the best way to deal with it, mate?
You know, we play very well football. We play football like heaven.
Not right now.
If it's spice, I'm told orange juice. After, no, don't give him
Put him in goal, I don't think too much on that.
very, very
You put him in goal, couldn't you? But I think he'd be too good at football right now.
How true it is. No. I just want him to, because I don't know when he's going
You're not good. Saturday. I like that one. No,
Someone got his name.
I don't know what his name is. Checking their both. Checking their both. You know.
that's pronounced.
No.
We'll stick with give.
Can we go on to the next clip, please? V 2017 0614 00016. And start that, please, at the beginning.
Hurry up, get to the chorus, I know that bit.
I wonder if he knows the dance to Berlin.
Well, I reckon it's quite similar to Macaroni. Is there any more? Is that it? Finished? Encore. Chat requests.
I'll never. Look at Tiny and Lindsay, the same Barbie girl. Over karaoke.
Still you do.
Breathe. It's still, it went from 173 to 156, and 133, 125, 111 now. So he's still tachycardic. So normal is between 60 and 100 beats a minute. So 178 is not bad. He's stupid.
What, he's on 178 now again?
Feel good, doesn't it?
111. He's still too high. I need to make sure he's got normal logs. And then he, keeps him here, and then about 9 o'clock he's still okay. But the
9
don't
o'clock
forget,
is in 10 minutes. It's 10 to 9 now.
What's the best way to deal with him, Nate?
Leave him here, okay.
he can't run over.
Cold water. That's what it's hard right now. That'd do it well good.
Rid of the moss.
Thanks for coming, Antonio.
Well, what can I say, I'd like to do my bit.
Do what you best.
Do my best, mate.
Jules.
Paperwork's in there, you just want to cost.
Jules, Harry Bullsat.
I'm leaving.
Dude.
What's that?
Isn't it? This manager, you have a cool style, man. I like you, man. You're a good guy.
What's his name?
Thank you. Can you wind it forward now to 28 minutes? Forgive me, not 28, to 11. 11:07. Thank you.
If you can take a little bit of time to watch practice in future, 1 or 2 6 hours in your year out.
I'm off. Be nice to him, Nathan.
I'm not sure about it. I'm just a big care, really.
What's he doing now?
Got a gurney. Checking out the inside of his skull. Eyes are rolling round.
Thank you. Can we put up... did somebody say something? Oh. Can we put up, please, transcript TRN 00000015 at page 21? Chair, divider 62 for you. We haven't played it all, so some of this may have been missed. When we get the transcripts up, we'll see on page 21. You'll remember right at the top, an officer called Haley says, "Where did Nobby go?" You remember, and you referred to Nobby earlier as Steve Lowson. Right at the bottom, we've got Derek Murphy saying, "I've no sympathy for them, absolutely no sympathy for them at all." And at the top of the right page, "If he dies, he dies." You'll remember the exact same words that Dave Webb used a few days before.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And then, please, another transcript. TRN 00000016, please. Chair number, divider 63 for you, page 1. A continuation, and we saw at the top, you'll remember on the subtitling, and we heard hurry up and get to the chorus, I know that bit. On the second page, at line 15, Nathan Ring calling him a div. Then at line 35, scrotum. Page 3, at line 33, I'll get him cold water, that will sort his heart out. That will do it the world of good. See that?
Bucket of cold water actually is what he
It
says.
was a bucket.
Yes.
And at 89, line 89, hairy ballsack. And then finally on page 4, div, and somebody whose attribution is staffer 3, ballsack. Do you know who said that?
No, sir.
No. Thank you. Right, let's then move to comments, which you recalled Dan Small making on the 14th of June. You deal with this in your inquiry statement at paragraph 185 and 186. And let me remind you what you say. I've already referred to incidences of staff making racist comments. And as you've already told us, there was a generally high level of anti-immigrant rhetoric among staff. On the 14th of June 2017, I had a conversation with Dan Small after the Grenfell fire, which happened to take place on that day, yeah? In
Yes,
which
sir.
Dan had said, oh, well, at least that's a few less foreigners in England. You said your camera wasn't on when he said that, but you made a note in your notebook, and we have that. I'm not going to pull it up because that's what you say, but for the transcript, it's page 20 of BBC 000060. You said you were shocked by his comment because you'd never heard him use abusive or racist language or in fact mistreat detainees.
Yes, sir.
And then you say at the end of that shift, when we were returning our radios in the gatehouse, you say you raised the death toll at Grenfell again, and Dan again referred to the fact that they were all foreigners, and you asked him whether he felt that the country would be better off without foreigners, and he said yes.
Yes, sir. By this time I'd begun filming.
Yeah. Because he also said that the job at Brook House had made him racist.
Yes, sir.
And what you took from that was he was saying that he had grown to dislike the detained men he was working with, and that this had found expression through prejudice, is the way you put it.
Yes, sir.
If we look at another transcript, please, Chair, tab 66, it's Kenkov TRN 000092 at page 21. Still on the 14th of June, page 21. At line, well, let's take it from the top. Dan Small says, "What's up, bro?" And you say to him, "Do you not like London?" "Absolutely not. Why not?" "Spot the white person when you go to London." "Spot the white person when you go to London. It will never happen. I would never ever move to London." And you say, "What? There's too many blacks?" And he says, "No, it's just too busy for me, mate. It's overpopulated, overexpensive, minority white people." And then somebody else talks about Chinamen and cute little Chinamen. Do you know who the other person was?
No, sir.
then the next transcript page would be page 50, please. Because this just shows, as you said, you having filmed it, and it was captured on film and it's been transcribed at page 50. There's obviously a discussion about foreigners, and at line 1609 you say exactly you're not English. Should the country be better off without them then? Do you? He says, yes, I certainly do that. He said, this job has made me racist. This job has made me racist. And so that's what you recall, and obviously what you captured. All right, thank you. Enough of that. Let's move on to another occasion and another individual, D149, who had taken spice on the 15th of June 2017. And let's just have a look, please, at another transcript that we have. Chair at tab 73. And if we could put up on screen, please, TRN 000069. And this is a video diary transcript. And I want to ask you about this, please. Page 5. And it's the bottom half where you say, sure, yes. And the video diary is of the 15th of June. So it's the day after, obviously, the 14th of June, which we were just looking at in relation to Dan Small. And it comes several days after we had the other spice incident with the 1275. So this detainee is the third detainee I've seen on spice. He's admitted into E-wing to be monitored. I continue going down the corridor back towards the library, and when I get back, healthcare have arrived and they're seeing to him, and the usual jokes, the usual smears from the managers of the officers can be heard. Only you notice healthcare aren't actually laughing this time. They know, they're aware that something quite serious is happening. This detainee, this Kosovan detainee, he's coming in and out of consciousness, heart rate going through the roof, and then it's plummeting dramatically. He's not in a good way at all, and it's probably one of the worst spice attacks I've seen in the whole 2 years I've been there. He was fitting, he was having seizures, he was frothing at the mouth, he was being sick. Every possible, we go over the page please, reaction you can have to spice, it appeared that he was having, and it wasn't a pretty sight. And I'm just going to paraphrase in the next paragraph. It got so bad, healthcare said we need to call an ambulance. And a few lines down, in the end, the paramedics arrived. They injected him with some sort of thing. They got the defibrillator out. I'm not sure they used that on him. And then towards the bottom, one of the managers, Michelle, and a couple of the nurses, whilst they were seeing to this Kosovan detainee, they were saying it's only a matter of time before someone is taken out in a body bag because of their reaction to spice. And I said to the nurse, do you really think someone's going to die here? And she said, it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time before someone there dies. And did you feel, although I mean the impression one gets from this is this was a particularly serious incident of a spice attack, given everything that you describe, but did you feel that when you were told, as you were, that it was only a matter of time, that was not joking but serious?
Yes, sir. And it wasn't the first time a member of the medical team had made such comments.
Yeah. In fact, you're absolutely right, because there was another occasion when I think a medical staffer says, only when one gets carried out in a body bag will they learn. Do you remember one of the medical staff was telling you that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, we don't have to go to the transcript because you've confirmed it. Let's move on then, please, to officers joking on the 20th of June that detainees being deported by air should have tape over the mouth or a bag over their head. Do you remember that? And again, we can look at a transcript of that. It's at RB 75 for you, Chair. The 20th of June, as I say, at page 10. So it's TRN 000084 at page 10, please. And at the top, somebody called Nathan Harris. Who was he?
He was a DCO who I think by this time was acting up as a DCM, sir.
I reckon they
In fact, I think by this... Sorry to interrupt
No,
you.
you carry on.
In fact, I think by this time he was a DCM.
I reckon they should do what they do on Con Air, masking tape, bag 'em, job done. Just tape over the mouth, bag over the head. And Sean Sayer says build a plane like that. And you're talking about the film Con Air, obviously. And Harris says, don't tell me you haven't. And Sean Sayer says, don't tell me you haven't seen that. And a little further down at line 253, I was just saying to these guys, do what they do in Con Air, just fucking tape them and bag them. And Murphy says, in America, put them in the chair facing the wall, they can't fucking move. They've got cuffs on, the arms and that, haven't they? Says Harris. Murphy, when it comes to taking them out, can't even walk and they're crying, put them in a chair, and so on. What did you make of that conversation? Was it just some banter, or was it an insight into some of the culture there?
Well, this is the kind of stuff that was seen as banter, but I found that using violent language in that environment, when there's a power imbalance between staff and detainees, was harmful.
Yeah.
And dangerous.
We've touched on it before, moving on to the incident on the 4th of July where officers took 2 minutes to remove the ligature from D865's neck. Do you remember?
Yes, sir.
And I'll just have you confirm, Mr. Tully, we've looked at your witness statement. It's also dealt with in the BBC's incident log, which is CJS 000025, which is the log of notes that were taken during the course of your debriefs by BBC producers. That's at page 37. But I think we can very briefly look at the transcript for that incident. Chair, it's behind divider 79. It's on page 2, and it's transcript reference 000033. Next page, please. And you see it, line 21. So this is that incident, Mr. Tully. Callum Tully, has he tied something to the... And this is what you were telling us a little earlier, although I use this as an example of... do you remember when Chris Donnelly had said in relation to D687, well, wait a minute until you pass out. But here is the transcript. Donnelly saying, no, it's not round his neck. And you saying, no, but what's that tied around the actual bracket? And then, do you want a fish knife? Here you are, use it. And then a fish knife is what he produces from his belt and cuts the shoestring or cable, according to what the transcript says from D865's neck and discards it on the ground. And he says, "That's all I need." And you say, "Oh, that will help him." And a medical staffer says, "Need to get some air in him." So that was the situation you were talking about, and your complaint about that is that took although we don't get that from the transcript, it took some 2 minutes for
Yes, sir.
Donnelly to decide to remove the ligature from the man's neck.
Yes, sir. I had to point it out to him so he would remove the ligature.
And if you hadn't?
Who knows?
Finally, insofar as incidents are concerned, is the 6th of July, and so, Chair, as perhaps the final hurrah for Mr. Tully, perhaps we can have that after our mid-afternoon break. Thank you.
Return at 3:10.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. All right.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Tully, before I move on to the 6th of July, there was one thing that I omitted to ask you about D1275. Can we put up on screen, please? CJS 005347. Chair, you'll find it in your slim bundle if you have one, and if not, at tab 106. Have you ever seen one of these before? It's a Detention Services Security Information Report, or a SIR.
Yes, sir.
And if we look down the document, there are a number of entries which are pro forma in nature. And under Audit Trail, it was opened by Marina Mansi. Do you know who she is?
Yes, sir.
Who was she?
She was a DCO, sir.
And we can see on the right-hand side it was opened by her on the 22nd of June. If we go to the next page, please. And there is an entry that is made by her, we'll see, about...
Sorry, Chair and Mr. Oppen, we have not got any of our screens working on this site.
Oh. Thank you. Well, we'll just... I'll wait for a moment. I was that close. That close to finish. Is it you?
I'm fine. Oh, sorry.
Deliberate spoiler. Would it be easier if I asked the chair to rise for a bit, do you think? Yes, please. Chair, would you rise? Thank you.
All rise. you again.
Chair, I understand the position is unhappily the bank of screens behind me hasn't been fixed. I'm sure it'll be fixed overnight, but everybody has kindly said that they're happy to continue.
Okay, thank you, it's appreciated.
Anyway, so for everybody's record, the document, let me remind you, which we have up, is CGS 005347. We're on page 2, and it reads this way: D1275 appears not to be in a positive, and unfortunately the right-hand side of the page falls off. So some of the time I'm going to have to guess at the words, but appears not to be in a positive mental state and seems to be vulnerable. And I believe he has been taken advantage of on C-Wing. I believe that the people are, and something's missing, an indecipherable him as a kind, using, it looks like a U, using him as a kind of guinea pig to try out drugs, as I have seen him socialise with detainees known to be active drug use dealers, hard to tell. Also, at one point, he was cleaning the tables downstairs, and he isn't a cleaner, so having questioned a roommate about this, his roommate says that there are detainees getting him to do the cleaning while they get
Paid,
pay.
I imagine.
Yeah, and in return giving him biscuits and other food items. He heard this from his roommate. Have also seen people take, perhaps, his cutlery and plates whilst at the food queue, and him, something, not saying anything, presumably. 1275 has been seen something by as a messenger, used by, but I don't know, probably not, as a messenger by several detainees, not on this wing, where they've treated him in an abusive manner, often clutching him by the neck, forcing him to go back and forth with messages, and was seen by another officer being asked to get a phone and demanding for this phone for another detainee. We don't feel that he is aware of some, perhaps, decisions that he makes, and he does get along with the Iranians in room C19, and his roommate does try to possibly look for him, but we do think he could possibly be taken advantage of. This concludes my report, and if we go to the next page, we'll see it was Marina Manzi who made it on the 22nd of June at 3:15 in the afternoon, or 13 minutes past 3 perhaps. Were you aware that 1275 was used as a guinea pig for drugs and was taken advantage of in the way that this report suggests?
No, sir.
No. He was clearly a vulnerable man.
Yes, sir.
And perhaps not unlike the young boy who was eventually moved out by social services, who was suspected of being under 18, who was also, as you told us, used as a guinea pig. Was that something that happened? So young and vulnerable,
yes,
being
sir.
used in that way, and anything done to stop it?
No, sir. Apart from reports like this.
Yeah, but what would happen? There's a report. Terrific. We've got a report. What happens to the report? What's done about it?
Well, I imagine the report was made with the hope that he would be closely monitored and staff would look out for him, the security department would keep an eye on him. But whether that would happen, I have no idea. Certainly didn't see much evidence of that whilst I was at Brook House.
Well, who took responsibility for this information report? We can see, if we go back to the first page, that Marina Manzi initiates it. The security analyst at section B appears to have signed. A security manager's recommendations have been made, director designated manager comments, and security office actions. And they're all dated the 22nd in the case of the initiation, and the rest the 23rd of June. And indeed the security office actions is timed and dated the 4th of July. So, but there's nothing else here to tell us what happens with it. It looks like it's gone through a lot of people's hands. Well, what's actually happened and what the outcomes are certainly is not recorded in this document as far as we can tell, assuming it's complete.
That's right, sir.
All right. You can't help.
Afraid not.
Right, finally, the 6th of July, and this is something that we did see during the course of the opening statement. It relates to another individual, D728, in a cell, shouted at by Charlie Francis and Steve Webb. This was a detained man that you were keeping constant supervision of.
Yes, sir, in solitary confinement.
So where were you at the time when that was taking place? Which wing? Where were you?
Solitary confinement block,
So
sir.
CSU?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And your understanding, and I take this from your contemporary diaries, just for the record, BBC 000061 at pages 7 to 9, and also the BBC's incident log, CPS 000025 at pages 37 to 38. Your understanding was that D728 had been protesting on the suicide netting on his wing the previous night because he hadn't received his medication.
Correct.
You didn't know what meds he was on or whether he was meant to be provided with it the previous night. And you said you didn't know if he had any mental health problems, though in the clip that we saw he suggests that he does. Yeah?
Yes, sir.
And as a consequence of jumping on the netting, he was placed on the block, as you've told us, on constant supervision. And in the clip, you were the member of staff responsible for observing him, as we saw, and he kept covering the viewing panel of his cell door with tissue paper, making it difficult for you to see him. And because of that, you asked for a manager to come down, do you remember?
Oh, yes, sir.
To advise you on what to do, because you knew it was important to continue observing him and he was obstructing the view.
Yes, sir.
And the control sent DCM Steve Webb, yeah? Charlie Francis accompanied him and the rest of the incident followed. Also, I think, was there an argument with 728, which followed regarding shop opening hours, and the detained man wishing to take a shower. You remember that? And he complaining that he didn't have his medication. You've already said that. And then the staff who were there leave the room, but he continued to cover the observation hatch. And staff members began shouting and swearing at him. One of the officers goes back into the room. Who was that? Do you remember? Was it Steve? One of the Steve Webb? Or somebody else who went back in?
I'd have to look back over, sir. Sorry, it's been a while.
And there's a conversation between that officer and D728 regarding the medication. The incident, I think it was Steve Skitt goes in it towards the end. An incident with D728 on the netting and D728 trying to hang himself. Maybe I've got that wrong again. No,
It's a different Steve, sir.
What?
It's a different Steve.
Different Steve. Yeah, I keep on thinking everybody's Steve Skitt, but obviously it's not. Right. We played the clip before, and so I'm not going to play it now, but what I am going to ask you to do is to look at some transcripts for us, please. Chair, for you, divider 85 of your volume. It's TRN 000017, please, at page 11. And on the screen is page 11, and at line 6, you're talking to Aaron Stokes. How do you deal with someone like that? And Stokes' reply was?
Chin him.
Chin him. And who were you referring? Who was the, how do you deal with someone like that?
I was referring to...
728?
Yes, sir. D728, yes.
The next transcript, tab 86, is TRN 000018 at page 5. This is a slight diversion in the sense that it covers two detained men, because there is reference here to D1914, who we saw in the earlier clip, being taken onto E-Wing on the 27th of May, but it also refers to D728, the man that we're talking about now. And I think what you... No, can you please leave it as it was for the moment? Thank you. I think what was going on here is on this day, this is the 6th of July, some time has moved on, and D1914 had self-harmed in the meantime, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And here you were talking to him, I think, on the wing. And where, so we're clear, where were you at this point? Was it E-Wing or CSU?
E-Wing, sir.
And that's where he, what, had been taken to, presumably after he'd self-harmed, he'd be taken back there?
Yes, sir. We had moved him to E-Wing during the restraint, as you know, and then he was meant to go on a flight.
Yeah.
He was taken to the plane, but the pilot refused to fly him, so he was returned back to
And was
Brook
that
House.
because of his heart problem?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
He was put back on E-Wing. Then he had had submitted a bail application. His bail was refused, and that led to the self-harming.
And was he hospitalised as a result of it? Do you know?
I think he was hospitalised. I mean, I spoke to staff, and I remember speaking to DCO Ed Fiddy, and he was saying how it was really, really bad.
Yeah.
A lot of blood.
And so here you are talking to him on the 6th of July. The restraint that we saw, to remind everyone, was the 27th of May, so some weeks have moved on. And at the bottom of, in fact, page 4, but we don't need to look at that, at the bottom, you ask him to turn around. He says, I'm okay. You say mad. Is that because you're looking at his injuries?
I'm getting him to show me his injuries,
Yeah.
sir, yes.
And he makes a quip on page 5, this is the life, and you respond in kind. Oh, you've done it in the other neck as well. Jesus. He said, I'm lucky because I'm no die. And you said you didn't die. Did you think you might die? Yeah, I think. And you ask him if he lost a lot of blood. And he says at the top of page 5, too much blood. Yesterday morning is coming blood. And then a little further down, the conversation changes, because at that point you're talking to somebody who is called Staffer 1. He seems a bit quieter, because you're referring now to D728,
Yes, sir.
who you were having problems with earlier in the day, in the way that you've told us.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who Staffer 1 was?
Not without looking at the footage, sir, I'm afraid.
But whoever he was says 728's been an absolute cunt. And at the bottom of the page repeats it. He's been a cunt. If we go, please, to another transcript of the same day, this time TRN 000094, at page 53, please. If we can put up page 53. You're back talking with Aaron Stokes about D1914. It's the same date, the 6th of July. Are you still on E-Wing?
I think, let me just read a bit, sir, sorry. Can't tell where we are at this point, sir.
Well, you talk about him.
You sure this is Aaron Stokes, not Ed Fiddy?
Well, that's what it says on the transcript. They were picking, did you say they were picking bits of his neck up off the floor? So you were talking about when he self-harmed.
Uh-huh.
And Stokes says it wasn't, people are saying chunks of his neck, it was literally bits of leftover skin. He was cutting his neck. Was in there, something watched him, trying to get the blade off him.
Yes, you're right, this is Aaron Stokes, yes.
And I saw 2 others in there. I looked in there was claret on the floor,
Mm.
chunks on the presumably floor. I want to get everyone away because everyone's crowding around. It's like, right, get out of here, we need some space, and the rest of them shut up. And a little further down at 1830, he says, yes, it was like that deep. It was on his neck as well. I reckon a couple of centimetres, he would have sliced his jugular and that's it. So it sounds like it was pretty serious.
Very so. I remember going to his cell after the self-harm incident, and the cell was covered in blood.
Yeah. Next page, please. Now we're back on talking about D728, still the same day, where you say he seems to have calmed down a bit. You're talking to Stokes. Oh no, he's a bellend, can't keep up with him. And he's quoting him here, I'll hang myself, I'll hang myself. I don't really care, I don't care, just do it. He ain't gonna hang himself with his shorts. And he quotes him again, if I don't get out of here, I'll hang myself. You're not gonna get out of here if you try and hang yourself. I was trying to explain that to him. And you join in the conversation saying it's all empty threats. Now, on page 56 of the same transcript, please. The conversation appears to continue. At line 1898, Stokes, I'm going to kill myself, I'm going to kill myself. And you say he was clearly not going to hurt himself. He was literally just saying it to get what he wanted. But actually it wasn't. It was having the opposite effect. Are you still talking about 728?
Yes, sir.
And at 1907, Stokes says he was just standing by that thing saying, I'm going to hang myself if I don't get off here. I just literally went, crossed my arms, you can see it on the camera, just literally went in the room, do it, just take yourself, I'll cut you down, fucking crack on with it. So what? I'm bloody bored of these empty threats, honestly. Would I give a shit if you hang yourself? I can't physically stop you from hanging yourself. I can cut you down. I can try and stop you from doing it, but I ain't going to get in trouble for it, so you crack on, mate. You get done with it. He didn't like it when I said stop playing your silly games and get on with it. He's like, they're not silly, they're genuine personal reasons, like, no, you're playing silly games, mate. Don't start. And D728, Mr. Tully, was he somebody with vulnerabilities? Was he unwell?
It seemed that way, sir, but
did you?
As I said, there was no process for finding out about these vulnerabilities unless you were sufficiently curious.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I spoke about the injuries to D1914, and I've gone through this chronologically just to see how the conversations fluctuated between him and 728. But let me please play now, and the final clip I'm going to play this afternoon, something we haven't seen before, is Kenkov 1044. It's only about 5 minutes. V 2017 0706 00022, beginning at 3:41.
What's he doing down here?
Who?
The Romanian.
Which one? The cutter?
Yeah. Oh, is he even cutting himself?
He's the one who went to hospital. Break chunks.
Really? Is that him?
He left chunks of skin behind.
Is that the one? Is that the one who... Did you go with Denver? Was it Denver?
Last night?
Yeah.
Me, Roy, and...
Pause there, please. Please stop it. Who's this chap?
This is Ed Fiddy, sir.
This is Ed Fiddy?
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay, we'll see what he has to say in a few seconds about D728. I've already read the transcript. Yeah. Carry on, please.
What is he doing? Is it well bad?
Ran out his arms, yeah.
Why has he done that? Oh, because he had bell hearing yesterday, didn't he?
Yeah, he got refused.
I remember him telling me. Oh, that's what's happened.
I think he wants to go off the wing.
Has he settled down now? Has he settled down now?
It's always chat to prisoner sex.
done?
Yesterday I was, yesterday I was at the bell, you know.
They didn't give you bail?
And the judge, shed judge as well. Two people release me, not release. I have guarantee.
Stick your arm out for me, let me see.
Sorry?
Stick your arm out, let me see. Let me see. Shit.
Yeah, but I know how many tablets I take. 70 tablets.
70 tablets?
70 tablets for heart.
Why did you do that?
Yeah, because I want to kill me, you know, because I'm here 3 months or...
Oh, let me see your cup. Oh, jeez. Oh, what?
I'm 3 months and 1 month plus heart operation. I was very upset, you know why? Because the judge said he has not operation heart. He said maybe it's online. And after I sent all the paper to see my medical record.
Yeah.
And now I wait 1 month. I'm okay now, boss.
Eh?
I'm okay now, I'm good.
Yeah, well, you're okay now, aren't you? But
Yeah, I'm okay. Just I'm not feeling good for my tablet. I took too much tablets.
too many tablets?
70 tablets.
70?
70, half tablets. 70, you know?
Mate, you're crazy. You're crazy.
Give it to the man. He's supposed to go to hospital, isn't he? 70. You go to the hospital, no? No 70 tablets, I think. Half tablets. All my tablets.
Go like that for us. Let me have a big... Turn it on, right?
I'm okay, boy.
Mad.
This is the life.
This is the life. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Oh, you done the other neck as well? Oh, Jesus.
I'm lucky because I'm not dying.
You didn't die? Did you think you might die?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Because you lose a lot of blood?
Too much blood. This today morning, it's coming blood. Today morning he changed me the, it was too much. No better, no how to let so. It's coming nice. This is the level. One look before.
That's deep, man.
Yeah.
Seems a bit quiet.
I've been on his content for 2 years.
What's he in it for?
He's been a cunt. Space out 10 minutes.
What's it like now? What's it doing now? Is it? Thing is, he's asked to go on a constant, isn't he?
Yeah.
And now he wants to go on the wing. That's not how it works.
Thank you. So the man you're talking to, that's obviously D1914, but in the same conversation, what did you call him, Ed Fiddy?
Yes, sir.
DCO?
Yes, sir.
He refers to 728 twice as a cunt, and we see that in that footage.
We do.
So that was something we looked at in the transcripts, and we've just seen it played. And we all can also see some of the injuries, not all of them, as a result of the self-harming by D1914. All right. Right, 2 other topics, Mr. Tully, and then you'll be pleased to know, as far as I'm concerned at least, you'll be done. I want to go back to the 4th and the 8th of May 2017. Do you remember yesterday I was asking you questions about an incident that occurred on the 24th of April when Calvin Sanders and others had D1527 under constant supervision in room 7 on E-Wing, and we saw the ongoing record of observations, and you'll remember that in that ongoing record of observations, Sanders refers to him repeatedly hitting his head on the base of a bed. You remember that? And you had conversations with Calvin Sanders afterwards, both on the 4th of May and the 8th of May. You noted them up in your diaries on those 2 occasions, and you talked about him then telling you how he'd banged his head on a table. Mm-hmm. Let's just look at the transcripts. And again, I make clear I'm not challenging you. This is obviously a question of recollection, but if we go back to the transcript, at least we get some idea, if the transcript is accurate, of what he actually said to you on both of those days. So the 4th of May transcript is TRN 0000096, please. And if we can go to the next page. Thank you. Can we expand it, please? And so here's Calvin Sanders saying, you know, like lockdown when I was sitting in his room. So this is the conversation where he's harking back to what he's telling you he did on the day where you put 2 and 2 together. It had to relate to the 24th of April. And no one else was there. I was on Constance. It was me and him there. He was being a right prick. He was trying to do that to his neck. And what he shows on the footage as represented in this transcript is he was pressing his index finger into the side of his neck. So that's what Sanders is showing you he was doing. So after when he did that, I fucking just went like that, and he demonstrates to you squeezing the free hand around the index finger pressed into the side of the neck. And you say, what's the best way to deal with someone like 1527? He says, turn away. This is Stokes saying, and you've told us this before, turn away and hopefully he's swinging. Probably that was in your notes. Sanders, do you know what I'd do is, if he's fucking banging his head on the base of the bed and he's bent down, put my hand down and went, and he gestures, head down, boom. And there's some laughter. And Stokes says, what's that? And he gestures, pushing the head down. And it looks like another officer. He's just doing it like constant, like that, and he moves his head up and down in a nodding motion. You say, what, his head? Sanders, yeah. Stokes, who moves his head up and down in a nodding motion. Did you not have the urge to just punch him in his face as he's gone up and bang, and he gestures a punch? So that's the first conversation. I think overnight, did you look at the video of this?
Yes,
Is
sir.
it accurate or reasonably accurate?
Well, he's not saying what he did do. He's saying what he would do when I asked what's the best way to deal with someone like D1527. So, and in any case, when you listen back, the word, it's not clear to me that he says base of the bed at all.
What do you think it might be then?
It's hard to tell. I mean, but I've always felt that it was table.
Except, I'm sure you'll agree with me, there's all difference in the world between base of the bed and table if the transcribers
But I'm not
up.
saying he says table in this.
I see.
In this scenario, but when it was communicated to me by Sanders at a later date, which we also have on film, I felt he was referencing the table and the reason, or the desk, and the reason why I felt that was because I went into the cell, saw him that day. He was sat next to him on the desk, and and his head was very near the desk.
No, you're right about that.
Nowhere near the base of a bed.
You're talking about the 24th of April.
Yes, sir.
So when you went in and he was actually sitting on the desk, we've seen now in some of the imagery a desk under the window, which is actually, I think, probably connected to the bed, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Sort of one unit all round.
Yes, sir.
And he's sitting on, is what you're telling us, he's sitting on the table.
Yes.
With 1527 on the bed next to him.
Yes.
Right. But here, you're right, on the face of it, if the transcript is accurate, what it's saying is, do you know what I would do, not what I have done?
Yes.
And so it's a brag on the face of it about what he would do. But let's have a look at then the transcript of the 8th of May, please. And that's TRN 000097 for the 8th of May. If we can put that up, please, and I think it's going to be the second page. Let's hit the next page, please. And we'll start at the top and we'll read our way down. It's you and Sanders. And at line 5, he was on E-Wing, on Constance, and I was in the room with him. And normally you're sat across, sitting outside watching him. But I still couldn't see what he was doing, so I sat in there on the table right next to him. So he's confirming what you've just told us. Literally, I was talking to him and obviously looked around to make sure no one was looking, banging his head, and as he was banging it, I went, and the transcriber says the gesture that he shows you is slams his hand on the desk, which is what you showed us in evidence when I first asked you. Held it right there, And he's trying to do that to himself, pushing his finger right in his neck. So I got his finger and thumb and went, told you I stopped you doing it. And he gestures here with one hand, and index finger and thumb are extended. With the other, he squeezes the index finger towards the thumb, which is exactly what he'd done 4 days before. So here it seems to be that he's actually telling you not what I would do, but what I did do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And somebody unknown says something like, yeah, shit, detainee. I didn't know who it was. The detainee was pissed, then he came back, and there's some chat about that. And then at line 26, line 24, in fact, you say, yeah, I remember when you was down there. And Sanders says at 26, because I was sitting on a table, weren't I? And you say, yeah, I remember seeing you, thinking, why does he look so chirpy on a constant? And you're saying, thinking about you, obviously, not him. And then at line 38, you say it's like the other day when he saw Jan, he couldn't even make eye contact. Who's the he when he saw Jan, he couldn't make eye contact? You talk about 1527.
Yes, sir.
Who didn't make eye contact with whom?
The detainee with Jan.
And Sanders says at 39, you know, I was saying to a mate, if you're going to do it, hurt someone. Fucking hurt me, at least get your time's worth out of it. You know, hurting yourself, you're attention seeking, aren't you, you little prick? Can't stand it. If you're going to hurt fucking someone, hurt yourself. Hurt like an officer, you know. Get to brag about it. Fucking, you know, I took a swing at him instead of fucking trying to hurt yourself, because hurting yourself is just fucking attention seeking, going to get you nowhere. Well, it may be obvious what he's saying, but what's the point of him saying, you know, if you're going to do it, you may as well hurt an officer? What's the point he was trying to make to you?
He was just trying to say to me that he feels self-harming is attention-seeking.
Yeah. But why was he saying it's better to hurt an officer if you're going to do that? What was the point he was making?
I don't know.
All right. So that's those two transcripts, and that covers the 4th and 8th of May, I hope. Finally, this, and I wish I hadn't used the word finally, because almost inevitably it won't be, but I have said finally, and so hopefully it will be finally, Mr. Tully, the 5th of June 2017. I'd like to put up on screen a different transcript, and I think one that you've been asked to look at. TRN 000063 at page 6. Now, the 5th of June, we haven't covered this yet, and we will cover it when we hear from D 1851, all things being well tomorrow, in which there was a use of force. On that day, he was sharing a room with another detained man who we cipher as D390. And you have those numbers in front of you. And on the use of force used on that occasion, 390 was subdued in his cell because I think he was being moved elsewhere. 1851 was in the cell with him and was held on the bed. And we're going to go into a bit more detail with that tomorrow, and we're also going to see, but not now, but I think you have seen it, some other footage which was disclosed quite late in the day by the Home Office, if my memory serves me, yesterday lunchtime. What I want to ask you is about that incident from your perspective, and we've been asked to ask you about this, and that's why I'm doing it. This is your video diary that we have up on screen, and I'd like to read through it together with you. It's the 5th of June. At about 10:30 a.m., I was asked to get my riot kit for the planned intervention on a detainee who was being sent to Harmondsworth, and Harmondsworth is another centre but near Heathrow.
Yes, sir.
He didn't want to go to this detention centre, and as a result we were going to have to remove him by force and hand him over to the escorts. When I was leaving the library to go and pick up my kit, I was met immediately by two officers, Shane and Ryan, who were also getting kitted up. The detainee was on Shane's wing, And Shane was basically saying he's boiling his kettle. He's getting his kettle ready for the team when they come in. Now pausing there, this is something that you told us a little about yesterday, that if there was a risk that anything like that could be used, you turn the power off. Do you remember telling us that?
Mm-hmm.
Right. He's getting his kettle ready for the team when they come in, so immediately your adrenaline starts skyrocketing because you've just heard that you're going into a potentially dangerous situation. And although you're covered by a boiler suit and other protective gear like helmets, boots, you just worry that maybe a bit of skin is going to be exposed. And if we get boiling hot water thrown at us when we go into this guy's cell, it's going to hurt, obviously, it's going to burn. So I was scared going to get my kit, but we were lucky because this detainee decided to walk down at 12 before we even needed to go up to the top landing. The managers managed to negotiate with him and tell him to come down, and he went on his transfer. So fair play to the managers who resolved that peacefully. And then, but that wasn't it, although I thought it was. That wasn't the end. And then you start that bit again. You say the removal went off successfully, no force had to be used, no one got hurt, no one got injured. But as I'm getting my dinner, later on at about 5 p.m., just heating up your chicken soup, you sit down in the staff room and there are already 6 officers getting kitted up in riot gear. This is for a different... you go to page 7, please. Detainee, of course, now a guy who's refusing to go to another detention centre. So just pausing there, I take it this has got nothing to do with the earlier intervention of 390 and 1851, so you've moved on here.
Correct.
Right. Let me move on then to page 8. Because I think on page 8 you're back describing the earlier use of force in 390 and 1851's room. If we look at the top of this page.
No, so I think that what we were just reading there was preparation for the restraint.
What, the 5 p.m?
Yeah.
All right.
So the first restraint never happens, and the detainee goes peacefully. Nothing's used. No force is used.
But, well, then,
as far as I'm aware.
Well, forgive me if I'm confusing you. That first detainee who went without force.
Yeah, so that's not relevant.
Relevant.
The last bit where I'm heating up my chicken soup, and then.
All right. Then you get kitted up.
Then we get kitted up. Right. Yeah, that is relevant.
Okay, fine.
That precedes this restraint.
All right. Well, I don't think there's anything we need to look in particular at that, but let's pick it up here. The manager pops the door open, and that was Steve Dix, I think we'll find, wasn't it?
Stuart Povey-Meyer.
Oh, Stuart Povey-Meyer,
yes,
sorry. I'm thinking of another one. Unlocks the door, swings open, the team rush in, detainee gets hit by the shield. Another team of kitted officers rush into the right-hand side of the cell and stand at the guy's bed to make sure he doesn't move or get involved with the restraint of the detainee who's being transferred. He puts up a bit of resistance, but he's very shortly in the control of the officers, and he does then comply. And I'm not needed to get involved. I don't even have to cuff him. And he goes down the back of A Wing and meets the escort team who facilitate a transfer. So it was another successful removal, albeit this one was a lot more challenging and quite a lot more nerve-wracking and dangerous for me. And why was it dangerous for you?
Well, obviously it was dangerous for everyone, but I was not in kit.
Yeah. And so you say, luckily, it didn't materialise, but if I'd had to get involved in this, in the restraint, the guy had boiled up his kettle, and he was going to use it on the officers if they didn't get to him before he got to the kettle. Yeah. Is that what you believed or were told?
That's what I was told, sir, and
yeah.
And, I mean, yeah, that's what I was told.
Did you realise the power had been turned off in the...
No, sir, I didn't know that at the time.
But you've seen it on the footage that you viewed overnight, I think.
On the footage I see, when they're stood outside the cell door, someone saying to turn the power off.
That was Stuart Povey-Meyer.
Yes.
Who says that, turn the power off. And I think when you actually go in, you see the lights have gone off and then they're switched on again at some point. And we'll see that when D1851 is called, Chair. Tell me this, if we can go to page 9, and if we can just expand the top part of that page. He knows that people are going to come remove him by force because the manager will tell him that, and so when the manager looks into his cell, just before the restraint's about to take place, and he sees the detainee boiling the kettle, that means only one thing, and he's going to try to throw that kettle of hot boiling water over the officers who are going into that cell to restrain him. He also had made the floor soaking wet with water, so it was slippery in there. People were slipping and sliding all over the place, a bit of an over-exaggeration, but it made it very difficult for the staff going into the cell to keep their footing whilst also concentrating on not only restraining this detainee, but preventing him from throwing boiling hot water all over them. Now, there are differences of view about what happened and why, and one of the reasons I'm being asked to ask you these questions, if my memory serves me on behalf of the Home Office, is just to ask you, well, first of all, do you remember I've been asking you a number of questions about the use of batons?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall the use of batons during the course of this use of force restraint on D390?
No, sir.
When I ask you, do you recall it, did you actually see any officers kitted with batons?
No, sir.
And I think I asked you yesterday, but I think it's only fair that we understand. Have you ever seen officers in riot gear, internal Brook House officers in riot gear, kitted out with batons?
No, sir.
Was there anything about the use of force that you witnessed on that particular occasion that you felt had been excessive or disproportionate or unnecessary?
When you watch the footage, when everyone watches the footage tomorrow, they'll see that my view of the incident isn't good because I'm the handcuff officer, so I can't really say whether or not I can't offer much help because I was one of the last people to the cell door, and by that time the shield had already been used on the detainee. But I didn't see anything untoward, but I couldn't really see anything untoward. No. This piece to camera here that we're looking at, I mean, that's off the back of other people's accounts and my immediate reflection on things. But when you review the footage, it wasn't clear to me what happened when the officers went in.
The water, just so we understand, I mean, you said that. Did you see that yourself, or were you told that?
I don't remember seeing it myself, but it was certainly said amongst officers afterwards.
Yeah. So when you say, so we have to be clear, when you say he had also made the floor soaking wet with water, so it was slippery, people were slipping and sliding all over the place, a bit of an over-exaggeration. Now, superficially, that sounds as if that's what you yourself observed.
Yeah,
and I'd like to know, and I think others would like to know, was that your observation, or are you putting it in a particular way because it's a piece of camera and it's just received information?
It's information that I had received from officers after the restraint. Didn't see people slipping and sliding all over the place, which is why I even say immediately in the piece of camera that it's an over-exaggeration. Wow. And, you know, when you go and review the footage and you watch things back, this will be why this was never broadcast, because actually my sort of what I filmed with the secret camera doesn't really demonstrate that this happened, and it was kind of hearsay, and so it's
so that we're clear, as far as you're concerned, are you saying there was no water in or outside the cell, or are you saying there might have been but you don't remember it anymore?
Yes, sir, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
The latter.
Yes, she is, I know she is. But and one of the main concerns you have, certainly in this piece to camera, was the fact that you yourself weren't properly kitted up.
Yes, sir. I mean, they were talking about the detainee behind the cell door having boiled a kettle, and that it was going to be thrown over staff, and I was the only staff member besides the managers that wasn't wearing protective clothing.
So that was something that worried you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. All right, well, thank you very much. I think that's all I'm going to ask you on that topic, and as I say, we'll hear more about it, I anticipate, tomorrow. Chair, that's all I have to ask. When I say all, that's a lot, but that's all I have to ask. Mr. Tully, have you got any residual questions?
Just one very brief follow-up. Is that the only occasion that you can remember not having the right equipment to use for a planned use of force, or were there other occasions from your memory?
I can't remember other occasions, Chair. No. As I said sort of earlier in the week, I can remember occasions when a use of force should have been planned, and that to avoid personal inconveniences, a spontaneous one was sanctioned instead. And so that also falls into a similar category, at least, because you could have been put in protective clothing and you weren't. But in terms of an actual planned use of force, I don't recall any other instance, Chair.
Okay, thank you. No, I mean, I would just like to thank you. I know you've been with us for 4 days, and they've been long days, and it's been difficult at times, but I do very much appreciate your evidence, so thank you.
Thank you for having me, Chair.
Thank you.
Chair, before Mr. Tully leaves us and before you rise, can I just say, make one correction? During the course of my opening statement, almost towards the end, I made a comment about the HMIP report in January 2017, and by reference to the Verita report, the way it was read out and the way I made the comment was, as it turns out, in error, for which we apologise. In saying more focused questions, I mean, the Lampard report had said that more focused questions might have identified some of the issues that Verita had identified. And I said it was noted that HMIP, the inspectorate, had changed its report. What that should have been is had changed its reporting methodology, which is significantly different, and I apologise for that.
So changing the methodology following the outcome of the Verita report. Okay, understood. Thank you very much for clarifying.
I'm sure Mr. Ormond didn't mean it as a criticism at all. I just addressed you briefly on that footage that's going to be seen tomorrow. It was described as being disclosed late by the Home Office. In fact, it wasn't until Mr. Armstrong's opening in a very recently received witness statement that the Home Office was aware that the inquiry wasn't in possession of that footage, and therefore, on receipt of that information, we made the necessary inquiries and provided it to the inquiry. But I'm sure it wasn't meant as criticism.
Okay, well, thank you for that clarification,
Thank you.
Mr. Blake. Thank you very much.
9:30 tomorrow, please.
Yes, okay. I look forward to seeing you then, and thank you again, Mr. Tully. Thank you.